So in section 1.7, the very last part of 1.7, you're going to solve absolute value inequalities. Now, there are two kinds of inequalities you're going to deal with. One's going to say something like this. The absolute value of x is greater than, let's say, 2. Okay? And it could be greater than equal to. It doesn't matter, but greater than. Or it could be this. The absolute value of x is less than 2. So you're going to see a greater than, or you're going to see a less than. And each one's different. How you write it, each one's different. Each one's different how you write it. Okay? So the absolute value greater than is written differently than the absolute value less than. So let's talk about the absolute value less than first. So let's do this. So the best thing to do is always remember these two, and then the rest should be simple. Because if this were absolute value equation, remember absolute value equations? The absolute value of what number is equal to 2? What did we say? 2 and a negative 2. So you wrote it as two separate equations, right? So that was simple to remember. Same thing here. You're going to use that same idea. All right, so let's solve this one first. Let's solve absolute value of x is less than 2. All right, the thing I'm going to do with this, I'm going to draw a number line, and I'm going to ask you, give me some numbers, so that way when I take the absolute value of it, it is less than 2. 1, okay, 1's a solution. I agree with that. Here's 1. I put a little dot there. So 1 works, because what's the absolute value of 1?
1.
Is 1 less than 2? Yep. What's some others?
Negative 2.
-2. What's the absolute value of -2?
2.
Is 2 less than 2? No.
-3.
0. 0. I'm going to put 0 first. 0's here. That does work. Because what's the absolute value of 0? 0 is less than 2. So, now you said the absolute value of negative. You said -3, right? What's the absolute value of -3?
3.
Is 3 less than 2? No.
So it's only 0 and 1.
Is it just 0 and 1? You're telling me that there are only two solutions?
Well, 1, -1.
Okay, -1, very good. -1 works. What's the absolute value of -1?
1.
1's less than 2. So remember, I'm just putting dots on what you're telling me. What else? Yes. So you're forgetting about all these decimals in here.
Yeah.
Is 0.5 a solution?
Yeah.
Yes. Is the number here a solution? Yes. Is the number here a solution?
Okay, so we're not sure the whole numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of students they get a little caught up because they keep wanting to use just integers. But you got to remember, any real number you can use. Decimals, fractions, and so on. In fact, if I go all the way down to -2, let's say -1.9. Is -1.9 a solution? What about -1.99999? So anything all the way down to what? -2. But since there's no equal sign, I'm going to use what here? Parentheses. So I'm shading everything. Everything here's a solution all the way up to what? 2 with a what? Parentheses. Right. So absolute value less than, you got to remember this, absolute value less than is bounded like this. It'll be bounded like this. So you go from a small number to a large number, everything between them. So the graph will look like this. It'll be bounded. Absolute value less than is bounded. Now in terms of interval notation, in terms of an inequality notation, here's what you're saying. You're saying x has to be less than, let me do this one first. I'm covering up this. X has to be less than what number? 2. And at the same time, it has to be bigger than what number? -2. So you see, when you have absolute value less than, you're going to use a compound inequality. Remember this in the last page? Remember that? So absolute value less than is going to look like this. Is that clear? Absolute value?
That's what the interval notation looks like.
The interval? No, that's inequality notation.
Okay.
So interval notation, would just be from parentheses, -2 to what? To 2 with parentheses. That's interval notation. So basically what you want to do is this. Given an absolute value less than, you want to rewrite it as a compound statement, as this inequality. You want to write as an inequality notation. You want to go from here to here. Is that clear? Okay. So remember when we did absolute value equations? We did absolute value equations. We said you're gonna rewrite this. Remember, this would be two equations like this. You rewrite it without the absolute value bar, so it's this expression in the middle, right? Expression in the middle. So you said 2x minus 1 equals a what? 3. And then 2x minus 1 equals a what? -3. Okay. You see the same idea? You remember that 3 and -3? 2 and what else do you see? -2. 2 and its opposite. 3 and its opposite. All right, but with this was an equation. With an inequality, you got to write it as an inequality notation.
And what is that X in the middle?
Well, just like this. Remember when we did absolute value to begin with? We said you rewrite it with the expression that's in the middle. What expression is in the middle? X. So x equal 3, x equal -3. You rewrite it with the expression in the middle. So remember here we rewrote it without the absolute value bars, right? Same thing here. You rewrite this without the what? Absolute value bars. You take the expression that's in the middle, and that goes in the middle. You take the expression that's in the absolute value bars, and you rewrite it like this. So if I had this, don't make it difficult. Just put all this together. If you had this, remember absolute value less than, you're going to write it as what kind of statement? A compound statement. Okay? What's going to go in the middle? X minus 3 is less than 3, and it's also bigger than its what? All you do is take the opposite of this number, right? So what goes here? -3. And then all you do is get x by itself, which was those 2 or 3 problems we did a while ago. So what's the next step? Add what? 3 to all parts, right? Y'all agree? So what's -3 plus 3? Is less than? Is less than 6. So any number between 0 and 6 is a solution. So give me a number and let's make it an integer. Give me an integer that's between 0 and 6. Huh? Okay. Let's check it. What's 4 minus 3?
1.
What's the absolute value of 1?
1.
Is 1 less than 3?
Yes.
Yeah. 5.7. What's the absolute? What's 5.7 subtract 3? 2.7. What's that value? Absolute value 2.7. 2.7 is 2.7 less than 3? Yeah. So you got to remember this. Absolute value inequality. Always think of this. Think of this one in your mind before you do the test. You're going to rewrite it as a compound inequality. So this expression that's inside the absolute value bars is going to be between this number and its opposite. So x minus 3 is less than 3 and bigger than its opposite. Okay? So if you had this, oh, and then the graph would look like what if you asked to graph it? You'd have 0, 6. What would you put at 0? Parentheses or brackets? At 6? And then shade and everything between them, right? Okay, let's say we had number 2. Suppose we had 3x minus 1 is less than or equal to 6. 3x minus 1 is less than 6. So you got to remember, this is an absolute value less than. So that becomes a compound statement. You write it as a compound statement with the expression in the middle. Okay? So what's going to be in the middle? And you're going to say it's less than or equal to 6. And at the same time, it has to be bigger than or equal to what? -6. Now, guys, remember I used the word bigger than or equal to, so don't make the mistake and put a greater than or equal symbol here. What I'm saying is that this is what? Bigger than or equal to -6, which means -6 is less than that, right? So be careful. These inequality symbols need to be pointing the same way. So don't ever write something as bigger than or equal to here and then less than or equal to here. They've got to be pointing in the same direction. All these pointing in the same direction. All these less than. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Or all these pointing in the same direction. All these less than or equal to. Yes. Okay. Now, what's the next step? You got to get the x in the middle.
Let's try to find one. Okay, I add one.
To all parts. What's negative 6 plus 1? Is less than or equal to. Is less than or equal to. All right. Next step.
Three.
So I got negative 5/3 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 7/3, right? So any number between negative 5/3 and a positive 7/3 is going to be a solution, including negative 5/3 and including 7/3. Okay, so let's kind of estimate these right here. So negative 5/3 is negative 1.66. Is that correct? Is that what you got? Put that in your calculator. All right. 7/3 is 2.66 and so on. Is that correct? I'm sorry. No, 2.33. Yes, thank you. 2.33. All right. So I'm going to use that estimate to help us graph. So here's your graph. So this is negative 1. This is negative 2. This is 0. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so negative 5/3 is between what two numbers? Negative 1 and 2, closer to what? 2. And this is less than or equal to, so it's going to be bracket or parentheses. Bracket. In fact, they're both brackets, right? Closer to negative 2, is that correct? Kind of like this. And then 7/3 is between what two numbers? Closer to which one? 2. Bracket. So this is 2. So let's say here. Just estimate, guys. Don't just do the best you can with estimating where it should be. But definitely don't put on 2, correct? Because you know it's not 2. All right, and then you shade in, and you're done. There's your graph. Interval notation. You'd say, now you got to use the fractions though. So what will be your answer? Bracket, negative 5/3, comma, 7/3 with a bracket. All right. Okay, so any questions on that? All right, so.
On my math lab, when you graph it, I think it has like decimals, right? I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know. Because I haven't looked at what they want.
I just remember when I was in 98 a while back, that it was something very confusing about that. I think I took it online. Yeah, I had like come in and talk to someone about it because it was just.
Okay.
I don't know. So maybe it was
well, it'll tell you whether one's decimals or fractions. It does say that.
Yeah, but there's something about pulling that. I don't know. Maybe you're just me.
All right.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
There's a lot of that.
All right. Okay, so everybody okay with the less than? Absolute value less than, you're going to write it as this, correct? Y'all agree?
Yeah.
Okay, now remember what I said a while ago. The way you solve this one is the way this one looks is different than the way this one looks. Okay, so this one is going to look different than this one. And that's what confuses people. The absolute value, I'll be honest with you, the absolute value less than, absolute value greater than throws people off. But if you can remember, this is the kind you'll have on the test. And so if you just can't remember how to do that right away, then why don't you just real quickly in your mind or on the back page of the test, write these two and see if you remember how it's supposed to look.
Okay, like, so then again, because I just got
What?
me. So the greater than,
We haven't done greater than, but all I said was this: the way you're going to do the absolute value greater than is going to look different than the way you write this one.
we've just been doing less than the whole time.
Yeah, we've been doing less than. That's all we've done. All right. So absolute value less than, you're going to always write it as a compound statement with the expression in the middle, right? Expression in the middle. Expression in the middle. Correct? Okay. The greater than, you're going to see is going to look different. And we're going to do that part Thursday. Okay, so we're going to do that part Thursday. All right, so in terms of, okay, so let me just give you some worksheets. So we're done with this. We're going to do the greater than Thursday. All right, and then that'll be the end of 1.7. And then we're going to look at 8.1. So if you haven't looked at the video I asked you to, then do it tomorrow or sometime Thursday before class. And remember, all I ask you to do is look at video 1 because we're not going to have time to do it. So I need you to look at video 1.